Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I've just finished watching Dune, the brand new movie that just released tonight. I saw it on HBO Max. I did not go see it in the theater. I saw it on my TV at home. So, I know some people are, hardcore movie theater loyalists, where it's like, if you didn't see it in the theater, then you didn't get the full experience kind of thing. So, if you need to take my review with a pinch of salt because I did not watch it in the theater, there you go. I'm just letting you know now. This is gonna be a full spoiler review, by the way. Full spoilers. So, about Dune, I only knew the bare basics going in. I knew this is a classic sci-fi novel. It inspired Star Wars. There's a desert planet, very much like Tatooine. There's something called the Spice Melange or whatever, and everyone wants it. That's basically the most that I knew about it. I've heard it described as Game of Thrones in space, with a lot of like inner family politics and backstabbings and betrayals and drama and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That can work. Very, very curious about that. And yeah, that's pretty much exactly what we got here. So to start with my positives, a major one for me was that this movie does a great job of visually explaining how things work and what they do and what they are and what the situation is. It just did a really good job of, like, if you've seen enough sci-fi movies, then you're kind of able to speak the same visual language of like, okay, so this is a body shield, this is what that giant machine does, this thing is used to bring this other machine up, and you kind of just understand the world that they've built here without it having to be overly explained. They do still do some explaining of like, okay, yeah, the slow blade can go through the shield, but a very quick hit will just bounce off the little shields. They do some explaining like that, even though they didn't necessarily need to, but I get it. For people who might miss it, they're gonna explain it to you. So that's a major positive, is that like I didn't feel lost at all. There was no point during this movie where I was like, I'm so confused, I don't get anything that's happening. Like I got it pretty much immediately as they were explaining it. I know there's an emperor, I know there's all these families and all these different planets that are loyal to the emperor because he's got like the biggest army, but any of these families would probably be willing to try and take their shot if they had one against the empire, right? So you pretty much get the setup, and it's not, there's not some big confusion. So that was really nice. Also, just visually, the movie itself just looks amazing, and yes, I'm sure it would have looked even more amazing on a movie theater screen, IMAX and all that, I know. But like, you get this crazy sense of scale on a lot of these shots, and when you see these ships going through space and just the vastness of it, and it just looks really, really cool. So those are my two like major positives of this. The thing is like, going into this thinking of like, okay, it's gonna be sort of a Game of Thrones in space, it very much does feel like that. This does, I think, even more than Star Wars, I think this has a better comparison point to something like Lord of the Rings, where we have like this family set up, we have like what the world is, and then something immediately goes wrong and everyone gets split up or dies. And I think that's one thing that, it's not a negative, it's just something that I thought was kind of strange. We are introduced to so many characters in the first hour and a half of this movie, and then by the end of this movie, pretty much all of them are dead. Which I thought was interesting. Like, I figured immediately, like, okay, well, they're gonna kill the dad off, they're gonna kill maybe the general dude off, but they just killed everyone off. Like, everyone except for his mom basically got killed off in this movie, which was interesting. I kind of thought that at least a couple more of them would have survived by the end of it. I don't know, maybe they're supposed to come back later, but having so many of them just be introduced in this movie and then get killed off in the exact same movie was an interesting choice. Also, Zendaya's character, she's barely in this movie. That's another thing, is that like she's a big part of the marketing and she's in all the trailers. For the most part, she is just there in these visions of the future that the main character is having, and they do not actually meet each other until like the last maybe 30 minutes of this movie. And even then, they only say a handful of words to each other, and then the movie ends. So that's another interesting thing. And I understand that this is not even the first full book. This is like half of the book. So I get that. You know, I understand that there's supposed to be a whole other section of even just this first book that they're adapting, and so they're kind of taking their time. They split it in half. But, and I think this is really my only major negative here, is that we are not guaranteed a second movie. If this does not perform well, box office wise, if this does not like kind of kill it, because this was a very expensive movie, we might not ever get a second movie to this. And if that does turn out to be the case, if this is just how it ends, I am gonna be left feeling as if I watched the pilot to a show and then they never made any more of the show, you know. That is very much how it feels right now. And here's the other thing, is that like, I know I made the comparison to Lord of the Rings, but like even Lord of the Rings, like that first Fellowship of the Ring, it still completed that first book. This one doesn't even feel like it did that. This one feels more like right after Frodo gets stabbed and saved and then taken to Rivendell, and they save him from becoming a wraith. You know, he gets stabbed by the wraith sword. It feels like if they were to stop the movie there, you know, like Frodo arrives at Rivendell and he gets saved, and then they end the movie before, you know, before the whole council meeting, before they go to the Mines of Moria, before Gandalf dies, before any of that stuff happens. They just end the movie at that halfway point. That's what this movie feels like, you know. So like, I can, you know, I've never even read the books. I don't even know the story. I don't even know what direction this is going in, and I can already tell that like, oh yeah, this is definitely not the end of the story, you know. And like, not even in like a, oh there's more to it, but more in a, oh it feels like they just stopped reading like suddenly, and they're like, and well, we might come back to this one day maybe, you know. Because even in those, you know, first books of a trilogy or whatever, there is a natural conclusion point, and this one doesn't feel like it reaches a conclusion point. And it does kind of seem like they try to make up for that by showing you all these visions of the future that he's having, and showing you all these, what I'm assuming are scenes that actually do happen later on in the book or in future books. I'm assuming a lot of those scenes actually are supposed to take place, but as it stands right now, this just feels like an unfinished thing. You know, it feels like I'm supposed to click the next episode to play, or I'm supposed to like wait for the second part to come out next year. And that's the other thing about it, is like, even when Lord of the Rings did their Fellowship of the Ring, and they had each movie coming out the next year, you know, like there was at least a guarantee that they were going to finish it. But right now, as it stands, there's not going to be a Dune 2 in 2022. Maybe not even 2023, you know. So even if they do greenlight a sequel, which it has not been greenlit yet, you know, they're gonna wait for the box office. It's like we might not even see that movie until 2024, you know, or even later. And that's kind of another big negative, is that like, I'm fine if you divide the story up, but like, you haven't even greenlit the sequel, and even if you decide to do that now, it's like you haven't been filming it. You know, Lord of the Rings was all being filmed back to back to back. They were continuously filming and then releasing, and then they were still filming the other ones as they were releasing it. You know, like, it was just, you know, it was guaranteed to happen, and we knew it was coming out next year. So that one, you know, it just I can't help but have that kind of nag at me for now. You know, tomorrow, if the box office looks great and they greenlight the sequel, that's great, you know, that's awesome, but I am still gonna feel like, when are we gonna see that? 2024? You know, it's like, I hope it doesn't take that long, because again, it feels like I watched the pilot of a show that might not ever have more episodes to it. So I don't know. That I'm conflicted, because there's a lot of great, amazing stuff here, and then it just feels like, and then it stopped. suddenly it ends, you know. So I don't know. I want to see more of these bad guys. I want to see more of this hero. You know, it is your very basic, like, you know, Campbellian heroes, Luke Skywalker quest, right? Like, it's your very basic thing there, but it is interesting. It did grab me. You know, I feel like this movie was more made for the diehards of the book, of the franchise, more than it was made for general audiences. Because I feel like all those visions of the future and all these little references and all this little things are going to be much more appreciated by people who know the full story and are highly invested in all of this than it will be than it will mean to people like me, who, I think I've heard of Dune before, I don't really know much about it. Okay, you're showing me visions of the future, that's great. Are we ever gonna actually see that stuff? I don't know. You know, so like, for me, it's I want to love this. I want to, because there's so much good stuff here, but like, the idea that the studio wouldn't even, like, you know, like, it's like almost preventing me from getting invested, because there might not be anything else to invest in, you know. Like, if you could tell me that there's something happening, then at least I'd feel better about, like, okay, now I will deep dive into it. But right now I feel like I can't, you know, because it's like, you know, the most I could do is read the books and go watch the 80s movie, which I don't even know how much that 80s movie covers, you know, probably more than this one, I guess. So I don't know. Interesting decisions made here. And I understand, like, the director of the movie, like, he wants to do this the right way, wants to tell the story the way it deserves to be told, which I agree with that. But the studio's not greenlighting any sequels, not making any promises. And especially the fact that this came out on HBO Max and theaters at the same time, and because of the way that it's cut and the way that it doesn't feel like it has a natural conclusion, I don't know how this is going to do at the box office. I cannot confidently come out here and be like, oh, it's going to do great, it's going to do so many big numbers, it's gonna I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna do. This could go either way, you know. Maybe it'll surprise me. Maybe general audiences will love this and demand more, and it'll make, you know, like 500-600 million at the box office or something crazy. And, you know, I don't know. Right now, it was a very beautiful movie. It was a very interesting story, but I have to wait. That's I think the most frustrating thing, is that it feels like I have to wait even more than like a normal movie, where it's like, oh, that's not the end of the story. It's like, there might not be an end of the story. And that's the thing that's frustrating, is that, like, I just gotta wait, I guess, see what happens tomorrow. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this. Have you seen Dune before this, or is this your first experience into it? And is the thought that there might not be a sequel, that they might not actually finish this story, is that keeping you guys from getting invested in it? Is that keeping you guys from feeling like, you know, you can actually try to dive into it when you know this might be it? Because, you know, like I said, even with, for example, you know, let's imagine for a moment that A New Hope, Star Wars, was the only Star Wars. Let's imagine there were no other sequels ever made. It just didn't make enough money, and that was just the end of the story. But that even that original Star Wars at least felt like it had an ending, you know, like they defeated the Death Star, they had a big ceremony where they all won medals, and you know, in our imaginations at that time we could just say, and that was the end of the Empire, the good guys won, movie's over, story's over, you know, like, so even that first movie had an ending, it felt like an ending. This one just doesn't, it just doesn't have an ending. It just stops, you know, and they literally even say, Zendaya's character even like, this is just the beginning. I'm like, yeah, I know, why are you stopping the movie? And then the movie ends. So okay. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, let me know how you're feeling, let me know how confident you are that this will continue, because this was a very expensive movie and they need to make a lot of money to greenlight the next one, and I hope they do, because I'm kind of just left here, you know, waiting, I guess. Waiting to see if I should bother getting invested. Yeah. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.